Thank you guys for coming back to our Yeastar technical training. Today we will be continue the second part of our training courses, where I will be talking about how to do auto provision in our S-Series PBX and how to add call routes rules. So you can receive and send phone calls. So this is our main topic today. Before we actually get started, I'd like to make sure that you can hear me fine. So I'd like to ask you to help me with my audio test. If you do hear me talking right now, please give me a reply in the chatting panel to let me know. Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, it seems like everyone can hear me fine. So let's get started. In our last webinar, we've been talking about some basic configurations in SPBX and some preparation work you will have to do so you can start installation of our system. Today we will be talking about some other configurations you will have to do to make sure that you can have your telephone system going and work perfectly fine as an basic IP PBX. We have already created extensions in our PBX. Now we already have those accounts created in our system, but we cannot make any phone calls right now because we haven't have our IP phones registered to our IP PBX. That is to say, now in software level we already have extension number created, but on hardware level we haven't assigned any actual phones to those extension numbers. So this is what we are going to do with auto provision. Auto provision requires a certain level. Auto provision requires a certain level of cooperation between us as IP PBX manufacturer and the manufacturer of IP phones. So there are certain that means only with the brands that we have cooperation relationship can we do auto provision. But as we have mentioned many times in our other trainings and of course in our website, we have cooperation with most major brands IP phones, so you don't have to really worry about things like that. Most of the IP phones you use we can support for auto provision. So as I have said, with auto provision we can register the IP phones automatically to the IP PBX. So that will save you a lot of time, because in most cases when you install a PBX for your clients, you may easily have to create like 70, 80, 100 or even more extensions and have all those extensions registered by IP phones. So if you have to do this one by one manually, this will take a lot of time. So with auto provision, it will be totally better. Okay, so you can actually find our auto provision module in our App Center. Every time when we support new models from or new manufacturers, we will have our auto provision module renewed and upgraded, so you can actually upgrade your auto provision module directly from App Center if you are actually using new models IP phones. We have that already downloaded, so you will see that in auto provision. So now we click auto provision. In this list, you will see all those IP phones we have connected physically to the local network of this IP PBX. So they are all in the local network, but they haven't been registered. So all you have to do is to choose the phones that you want to register it to our PBX. So Now let's do it. Oh, sorry, one more thing. If you didn't find the IPPBX, the IP phone you are looking for, you can totally click scan. So the PBX will scan the whole local network again to see if there are missing equipment. Okay. So now we need to check the IP phones that we want to configure. Okay, so now we click add bulk. So we have chosen a bunch of IP phones as you have seen, but this is very important. You need to make sure that the IP phones that you have selected are of the same model from the same manufacturer. This is very important because different models from different manufacturers will come with different kinds of configuration files. So the way we do auto provision is for the phones to automatically go to PBX to download those configuration files and fill them. So the registration will be automatically finished. But if you have included different types of models, then the system will only download the model you choose here, but the configuration file will surely not work on the other models. So you will have problem here. Okay, so now we have already made sure that all the phones we have chosen are Yealink SIP T19PE2. So now all we have to do is to click the MAC address. Sorry. We click edit. So all we have to do is to click the MAC address field. So here we will see all the MAC addresses of all the phones that we have selected. We choose one here, and we can assign this MAC address to one of our extension number, and we click add. So this MAC address of the phone IP phone and the extension number is assigned. So now we have linked this extension number to this IP phone. And the registration relationship is now confirmed, and now we continue with other equipments. Until we're done with all the MAC addresses, we can click save, and the auto provision will be realized automatically. Very simple, very easy. Okay. There are something else that I have to say. Actually, here in this auto provision here, you can see all the brands that we support for auto provision, and all the models of each brand that we can support. Okay. Okay, all the brands and all the models can be shown here. Well, if you have your own devices, you can surely check to see if your model is being included. And as a matter of fact, we support actually two kinds of auto provision. The first one is what we call a PMP model. So in PMP model, all you have to do is to repeat what I have shown you, and the auto provision will be done very easily. That is our PMP model. That means you don't have to do anything else. Most of the IP phones support PMP model, except for Cisco and Polycom phones. Well, if you are configuring Polycom and Cisco phones, you will have to do what we call a DHCP mode. So in DHCP mode, you will have to set your IPPBX as an DHCP server. And all the IP phones will directly go to the DHCP server to get configuration files. This is DHCP mode. So in DHCP mode, you will have to, as I have said, set up your PBX as an DHCP server. So you can do it in security and service. here you will find enable DHCP server. Once enabled, the PBX will work as the DHCP server in your local network. And of course, before you do that, you need to make sure that you have disabled your router as the DHCP server. In most network environment, the router will be DHCP server. We cannot have IP phones to go to router for configuration files because the router do not have any configuration files. So you need to disable your router and enable your PBX as DHCP server. This is very important thing to do. And after that, you just follow everything that we have done in auto provision. That's totally the same. Once again, if you are configuring Polycom phone and Cisco phone, you need to do a DHCP mode. So you need to enable your PBX as DHCP server first and do auto provision next. If you are using other brands, then you can directly do auto provision. You don't need to do anything on DHCP server. That'll be okay. All right, so now we have registered IP phones to okay. Oh, sorry, I have forgotten. If you are configuring with DHCP mode, most phones will not reboot automatically. But on PNP mode, the phone after the registration is done, automatically, most IP phones will reboot automatically to finish. So the configuration, the registration will take effect. But on DHCP mode, the phones will not do that. So you will have to manually reboot the phones. Okay, now we are done with the auto provision. So with the auto provision done, you have your phones registered in your extensions. So you can make actually internal phone calls. But you cannot make and receive any outside calls because we haven't set any trunks here. So the second part would be to set trunks. Okay, now let's go to trunks. Now, as you know, we support most kinds of physical trunks. We support PSTN trunks with FXO module. We support mobile trunk with our GSM module, so where you can use your GSM SIM card, your WCDMA SIM cards, to get mobile trunks. And of course, we support E1 lines and the BRI lines, of course. With all those physical trunks, the most important thing is to have your module installed and have your lines connected. There are no much to say about those trunks because, to be honest, because they are physical trunks, and especially when you are doing PSTN lines, the most important thing is physical connection. If the physical connection is right, not much will go wrong actually. So there is one thing that might go wrong in in PSTN lines. So in advanced, we see caller's ID settings. So if you are sure that you have caller ID service from the service provider, but you do not get any caller ID, then you need to check your settings in this FXO trunks. So here, you need to make sure that the caller ID setting is right, and the caller ID start mode is right. This is very important, and you need to enable caller ID detection. So if you find out that your caller ID detection is disabled, then of course you won't get any caller ID. But if it is enabled, then you need to confirm with your service provider to see what kind of signaling do they use for the caller ID, and the caller ID, when will the caller ID start when a call comes in. So those are the things you need to confirm with your service provider. Other than that, not much might go wrong. But if anything do go wrong, you will. The most important thing is to, as I have said, confirm with your service provider, because when it comes to physical lines, there are not much you can do on your side. And here, we have mobile trunks. Well, with mobile trunks, basically you have your SIM card inserted in this module in the module, and have that module installed in your PBX, so you can make and receive phone calls through that SIM card. Okay, so there is something that we need to pay attention to. Is this pin code? If you have pin code together with your SIM card, it probably will be a 4 digits or 6 digits number that your service provider give you together with your SIM card. You will have to put this pin code right in here, so the PBX will enable this SIM card automatically. Otherwise, the SIM card will still be locked. You cannot make any phone calls. But of course, if your service provider didn't give you any PIN code, then probably they don't need any PIN code. This SIM card is already activated. Then no, you don't have to put anything here. Okay, then with E1 lines and BRR lines, there are really not much I would talk about those. About those lines. You need to really confirm with your service provider about those parameters and put them correctly. Otherwise, you might have problem. Okay, but if you put them all correctly, nothing will go wrong. We can assure that. Okay, now we have. Now we'll be talking about VoIP trunks, because this is where you can actually create trunks, not only do physical connection. Okay, when you click at VoIP trunks, you will see the parameters here. So now we have two kinds of trunks: register trunk or peer trunk. So now firstly, let's take a look at register trunks. So in register trunks, you can choose the protocol you use, well, IX or SIP trunks. Well, that depends what kind of protocol do your service provider use. Okay, so you make sure of that. You make sure you choose the right one. And well, there we have provider name. Well, the provider name do not require any authorization, so that means you can just put in anything. Only this is only for you to identify this very trunk in the system. So here we have host name and IP address, domain address, username, password, authentication name. All those informations will be offered by your service provider. So you need to make sure that you put in the right thing. And here we have from user. Okay, in this from user, that means, as you can see here, all outgoing calls from this SIP trunk will use this from user. In this case, the account name of the SIP registration in from header of the SIP invite packages. So that means this from user will be the identification of all the data packages sent out to the service provider. So well, you can have SIP connection. So in most cases, you will put in the registration name here. Well, as I have said, you should confirm with your service provider to see what actual parameters should you put in here. Okay, as you see, it requires domain, username, authentication name, password. So in most cases, if the service provider offer you those things, then you need to create view and register trunk for the SIP trunk you have. But sometimes in some country, I cannot make sure if it is true in your situation. But in some country, the service provider would not verify your identification through registration name and password. They would do it in a hardware aspect. That is to say, they will require you to register the MAC address of the network interface that you use to connect their SIP trunks. So in this case, the service provider will give you separate trunk, especially for making phone calls and other lines to go to internet. But if you are using a register trunk, then most likely the service provider will give you only one line, which can go through which you can go to surf internet or making phone calls. Okay, so if your service provider didn't give you any username or password or things like that, probably that will be peer trunk, and they probably will give you other piece of hardware as well. So for this situation, you will need to use peer trunk, and you can also use peer trunk to connect this PBX to other PBX. That is to say, if you have branch offices, you will use peer trunks to realize the interconnection. But that is way out of our range for today. So all we have to do is to tell you now what kind of SIP trunk should you use under different situation. Okay, according to our experiences, in most cases, people use register trunk to connect to service provider. Okay, now we have our trunks created. Well, we can now make phone calls. We have now resources where we can send out our phone calls, but we cannot actually make any phone calls and receive any phone calls, because as an IP PBX, we can actually decide how we like to manage that. So here we are going to talk about the core function of IP PBX, that is call routing. Okay, now let's go to core controls to do inbound and outbound routes. Let's firstly see outbound routes. Okay, outbound routes, it defines how you like to make phone calls to public network. Okay, so firstly, you will need to choose the extensions that you want to use in this outbound routes. That is to say, the extension that is authorized to use this very outbound routes. Okay, let's make an example. Okay, let's say we want to make a special outbound routes specially for international phone calls. Okay, let's do that. Well, in name we might want to put international. International. It's international phone call. The name of each route should only include letters and numbers. Very important. Okay, now we want to add the extensions that we allow to use to make international phone calls. So we choose the extension we want in the selected table. So now those extensions are selected, and we can choose a trunk with which we use to make outbound calls, to make international phone calls. It will probably be a SIP trunk because it will be clearly the most economic choice, but we can also add another trunk if you like. Well, if you have multiple SIP trunks, you can add them all into this table as you like. You see here now, if you have chosen multiple trunks in this table, then the system will use trunk according to the order you put them in. So firstly, they will try the SIP trunk. If the SIP trunk is not available, then they will try this FXO trunk that we have chosen. Of course, we can change the order if we like. But anyway, the first trunk that we have that has been put in this list will be mostly used. So if we want to really spread out the usage, we can enable run memory hunt. So this means if we have chosen multiple trunks here, then for the first time the system will try the first trunk, and for the second time the system will try the second trunk. If not available, the system will move downward. So this is what round robin memory hunt do. So you can really spread out the usage and do not overuse one trunk too much. So this trunk can so this trunk won't generate too much phone bill. Okay. So now we have choose extensions, we have choose trunks. Now we need to do dial patterns. So dial pattern is really, really very important here. This defines how we like to make internet, how we like to send international phone calls. So in dial patterns, that means only the numbers dialed by those extensions that match the dial patterns we have set here will be sent out according to through those trunks. Otherwise, it won't be sent out. Okay, so now let's talk about dial patterns. Now we're using these trunks for international phone calls, right? So what we do here is set the dial pattern. In most company, it is required to dial a prefix before an actual number if they are making an outbound call to the public network, and this is actually necessary because in any PBX system, the first priority is internal phone calls. That is to say, if you dial a number that do not match any outbound routes that you have set, the system will just directly go to see if there are extensions. So internal calls will have higher priority here. So we need to make sure that the system knows directly that this is outbound calls to avoid any confusion here. So in this case, we put 9 as the prefix for outbound calls. That is to say, all extensions, if they want to make a outbound call to the public network, they will have to dial a 9 first before the actual number. Okay, so we now dial 9. And because this is an international phone call, the second 2 number you dialed has to be 00, and followed by the country code and the actual number. So this way we have built up a dial pattern for the international phone call. The first number 9 is the rule that we have made for outbound calls, and then the second 2 numbers will be 00 because for international phone calls, the first number you dial has to be 00, then follow up by the country code. This is a general rule in most countries. So then we put a dot here, if you see it. A dot actually means that there are numbers followed up, but there are no rules about those numbers. So if I put in 900 dot here, that means the first 3 number has to be dialed has to be 900. But there are actually there are numbers followed up, but we don't have, there are no limitation about it. So if we keep this dot here, that means if the extension dial 900, then this phone call will not be sent out through this outbound routes, because as the pattern shows, there should be numbers followed. But as you haven't dialed anything, then it do not match this dial pattern. Okay, I hope you understand what does this dot mean here. Here in strip we should put first, because we should put 1, because as we know, the first number 9 is an internal rule of the company. It's not part of the actual number, so we should strip the first digit that people dial here. So the first digit 9 dialed will be delayed before the call is sent out. And in prepend, you can actually add a series of number before this call is actually sent out. So let's take this 1795951 as an example, because this is only an example in China, because in China, if you are making an outbound international phone call and you dial this number, this call will go through the SIP trunk of the service provider to go out. It will be actually a lot cheaper. Sometimes people forget about this number, but we make sure we put it here. So the system will actually add this number before this call is sent out. So now we have finished with this dial pattern. This means all those extensions, only the selected extensions, if the selected extensions dial a number that match this rule, that starts with 900 followed by any other number, then this call will be sent out through the trunks that you have selected. But before this call is sent out, the first number dialed 9 will be firstly deleted. Then this prepend number 17951 will be added before the number dialed. So the real number that sent out will be 1795100 followed by the actual number. So this is outbound routes. Well, we can have a lot of interesting ways to use outbound calls. For example, we want to use this outbound calls only for domestic calls, only for domestic phone calls, right? So what we can do here is, let's change this dial pattern. The first number 9, we like to keep them because, well, it's a internal rules, right? And the strip we like to remain the same because, well, the first number dialed 9 has to be deleted. And in prepend, we can actually add your country code. Yeah, you mean what? You know what I mean by that? We add your country code. So in any number before any number dialed out, the country code will be automatically added before the number dialed. So it has to be a domestic phone call. If it's not, then it will be a then you cannot make any phone calls. So this routes will be used specifically for domestic phone calls. Okay, well, when it comes to outbound calls, you can actually be creative. The dial patterns, you can actually be creative and do whatever do a lot of things with these dial patterns to really plan your telephone system well. But there are basic rules about the things that you put in. Like, as you see, we have put in numbers, but you also can put in letters that stands for certain numbers, like X that matches number from 0 to 9, Z matches from numbers 1 to 9, N matches from numbers 2 to 9. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of letters and the characters that have different meanings. You can always check that if you put your mouth in this little blue icon here. It will pop out automatically. Well, you can see and decide how you like to add your dial pattern. And of course, you can add multiple dial pattern here in this system. And the dial pattern will be matched from top down. So you can, so you need to plan it carefully. Okay, and here you see a password. This is also very important. Okay, for example, we are creating a outbound routes especially for international phone calls, right? Other than authorize those extensions, we want more security here. So now to avoid people who don't have the authority come to use the extensions, to come to use the selected extension to make international phone calls, right? So here in password we can choose single ping, and we can just add a ping number here. So if we add this ping number here, that means when you dial the for example, when you dial the number that matches the international phone call patterns that we have set before the call was sent out, the system will give you a prompt, ask you to put in the right password. So if you put in the right password, we have set it here, then this call will send out. Otherwise, even you are using the authorized extension here, this call won't be sent out. But we can actually realize more controls. That is the ping list. Okay, in ping list, that is actually a bunch of a bunch of pings, a bunch of codes. So the idea here is, well, we have a series of numbers here. Oh, sorry. We have series of number here. We can assign each one number to each personnel. So that means if we have, for example, if we have, as we see here, 5 extensions who can make outbound calls, we can assign one ping to each person, and we can check in, record in CDR. That means before the after they dial the number, the system will as well prompt them to put in the right password. But well, as all passwords are available are valid here, you can know who actually make this international phone calls, because the personnel only know their own password, right? So you will see from the CDR which password do they use, and you will know who actually send out this, who make this international phone calls. So this is ping list, and ping list can actually have more use, because sometime, for example, you already have you have emergency cases. For example, you have to make an international call right now, but all the authorized personnel is not here in the company. So you can just add a temporary ping in this ping list, and well, you can tell the temporary ping to whoever is going to make this phone call, and he will make the international phone call. And after that, you can just delete it from this ping list. And well, this will make it a lot easier than simply changing ping list. Okay, so this is pretty much all we have to say for outbound routes, and now let's talk about inbound routes. Inbound routes is where you define how you like to receive phone calls. Okay, so now you can have name for this inbound routes, but of course you can only put letters and numbers here. And here we have a DID patterns. So you can actually assign your DID number here, and we'll assign you can put your DID number here and put corresponding extension number in extension number in destination. So this way you can assign a DID number to a specific extension or group of extension numbers to a series of extensions, as you can see that we can do extension range here. Okay. Other than that, we can add trunks, and we can add destinations. So we can actually define how we like to receive phone calls from this very trunk. So we have multiple choices here. We can have hang up, we have extensions, we have voicemail, we have IVR. Well, in most cases, people will use IVR, of course. You can choose the IVR we have. We will be talking about IVR in our next part. Okay. So now see here, you see enable time condition. Time condition is actually the core feature in inbound routes, because in most cases people will like to receive phone calls according to their schedule. That is to say, if you have, for example, if you are actually running a telephone services and then you have 3 shifts, 24/7, that means for different period of time, that is to say for different shift, you will need to send calls to different ring groups to different destinations. So you will have to set it right here. And of course, you might have your schedule. You might have a pretty complicated schedule. You might have lunch breaks and stuffs, and during those time, the phone calls won't be received normally. So you want to set time condition here. Okay, so now let's go to set time condition. In the call control, you will actually see time condition here. Now all the timetable is included. As you see now, we have a very complicated timetable. As you see here, we have workday timetable. That means, we have workday timetable that will cover from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. of all Mondays to Fridays. Okay, that is our workday. Our workday time condition. And of course here we have our tea time condition here. We have set from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. as our tea time, and we have set our lunch breaks from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. That is our lunchtime break time condition. And of course we have special time like Christmas, right? We don't know which Christmas because Christmas will fall in different days of the week, but the actual date is fixed. So we can do this kind of configuration in advanced options in the timetable, where we choose specific days or specific month, or we directly choose specific month to set it as a special time. A special timetable. Okay, so now let's get back to inbound routes and see how this thing work. Okay, now we choose our extensions, and we choose our trunks, and we enable our time condition. Okay, so firstly we put in workday time condition because that is we put in our workday time condition because this is the time condition that we use mostly. So here we choose workday. During workday, we want to send it to an IVR, of course, right? So we set it like this, and then we can add our lunch breaks. So during lunch breaks, we want to set it to voicemail because probably there are nobody in this company, right? And then we can add our tea break. During tea time, we'll probably the receptionist will be in position. So we just choose one extension as our tea time destination. Okay, now we add the special Christmas time. Okay, for special Christmas time, we probably want to have a special IVR made for Christmas, right? So we put it right here. Now we have all the timetables set right here, and we don't want to carefully avoid overlaps between timetable because we have the mechanism that when a call comes in, the system will try to match the timetable from top of the list to the down of the list. That means you need to put in the smallest timetable to the top of this table. That is to say, the system will firstly see if it's Christmas time. So if it is Christmas time, then the system will go through this line. If it is not, the system will continue to match to see if it's lunchtime or the tea time. So the system will check from top to the system will check from top down, and this way all your configuration will work. So if the schedule with the biggest timetable, with the biggest range here is workday. So if you put the workday on the top, that means will actually all of your other settings will not take effect because it just falls right into the range or the timetable of your work days. So here we put workday to the last, and of course here we have other times. That means if the time do not fall into any of the timetable you set here, then it will be hand up automatically. Okay, and of course we have distinctive ringtone here, which means if the system can have distinctive ringtone, especially for this inbound routes. So you know that this call is the call is coming from this very inbound routes. And of course, here we have fax detection. So that means if you are actually using these routes for fax, then you will surely need to enable fax detection. Then the system will try to see if it is really a fax. So if the system see this call is a normal call, then it will be sent out through the rules that we have set here. If it's a fax, then the system will be sending this fax according to the destination you have set right down here. So you can actually assign one extension here. Well, this extension will be registered by a fax machine. So you will receive the fax, and of course we have fax to email. So you can actually send this fax in by email, and the fax itself will be attachment. That is I believe, there will be a TIFF picture by this mail to whoever is assigned to receive fax. Okay, mostly you will use fax machine under this kind of situation. Okay, there is one last thing that I have to say for today. As you see here, we already we have a feature code actually here in the inbound in each time condition of this inbound routes. That means authorized extension only can do this. I need to emphasize that. Well, authorized extension can actually dial this features code to forcibly convert your destination according to this time condition, despite of the real time. I think I have explained it clearly, right? And they can just reset by dialing this reset features code above here. And different time condition under different inbound routes will have its own features code here. So you don't need to worry about anything right here. Once again, it only applies to authorized extension. Not all extension can do that. Okay. That's all we have to say for today. Thank you so much for your participation. If you have any questions, you have any doubts, please tell me and I will give you answer right away. Okay, thank you.